Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 9th chapter, the passing away of Bhishmadev, text number 25. Sutta Uvacha. It's behind the remote. Yudhishthirastad akarnyam Shayanam Sharapanjare Aprichchad Vividan Dharman Rishinam Chanu Shrinvatam Sutta Uvacha Yudhishthirastad akarnyam Shayanam Sharapanjare Aprichchad Vividan Dharman Rishinam Chanu Shrinvatam Sutta Uvacha Yudhishthirastad akarnyam Aprichchad Vividan Dharman Rishinam Chanu Shrinvatam
Sutta Uvacha
Yudhishthirastad akarnyam Shayanam Sharapanjare Aprichchad Vividan Dharman Rishinam Chanu Shrinvatam Sutta Uvacha Yudhishthirastad akarnyam Shayanam Sharapanjare Aprichchad Vividan Dharman Rishinam Chanu Shrinvatam Sutta Uvacha Shri Sutta Goswami said, Yudhishthira, King Yudhishthira, that, Akarnyam, hearing, Shayanam, lying down, Sharapanjare, on the bed of arrows, Aprichchad, asked, Vividan, multifarious, Dharman, duties, Rishinam, of the rishis, Cha, and Anushrinvatam, hearing after. Sutta Goswami said, Maharaj Yudhishthira, after hearing Bhishmadeva speaking in that appealing tone, asked him in the presence of all the great rishis about the essential principles of various religious duties. Purport. Bhishmadeva, speaking in that appealing tone, convinced Maharaj Yudhishthira that he was very soon passing away, and Maharaj Yudhishthira was inspired by Lord Shri Krishna to ask him of the principles of religion. Lord Shri Krishna inspired Maharaj Yudhishthira to ask Bhishmadeva in the presence of many great sages, indicating thereby that the Lord's devotee like Bhishmadeva, although apparently living as a worldly man, is far superior to many great sages, even Vyasadeva. Another point is that Bhishmadeva at that time was not only lying on a deathbed of arrows, but was greatly aggrieved because of that state. One should not have asked him any question at that time, but Lord Shri Krishna wanted to prove that his pure devotees are always sound in body and mind by dint of spiritual enlightenment, and thus in any circumstances a devotee of the Lord is in perfect order to speak of the right way of life. Yudhishthira also preferred to solve his problematic questions by asking Bhishmadev rather than ask anyone else present there who was seemingly more learned than Bhishmadeva. This is all due to the arrangement of the great will carrier, Lord Shri Krishna, who established the glories of his devotee. The father likes to see the son become more famous than himself. The Lord declares very emphatically that worship of his devotee is more valuable than the worship of the Lord himself. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Praladananda Swami Tinapune Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachaline Nirvishesha Shnyavadi Pashatyade Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So Lord Krishna made an arrangement to glorify his devotee Bhishma. Of course, we probably talked many times before about this. And one question would be, why is Bhishma glorified? So one reason is the way he is passing away. We can see he's completely detached. Probably this bed of arrows is not very comfortable. I don't know. If someone wants to try, we can maybe arrange. And it's interesting that he is in a mood of preaching. About Srila Prabhupada, they said the same thing, that he was passing away just like Bhishmadev. Of course, his bed was not of arrows, but his body was very, very weak. And Srila Prabhupada was always preaching. He was a few days before passing away, he's dictating Srimad Bhagavatam. Just sitting in his bed, you can barely hear his voice. But still, he's dictating Srimad Bhagavatam. That's an example. I wanted to focus a bit more on another incident in the life of Bhishma. How he got his name. And at the same time he got this benediction that he can die at his own will. Because here Bhishmadev, he fell many days before. He was, and this incident is after the battle of Kurukshetra. So because he had this benediction that he can pass away whenever he wants, he was still there. And actually the instructions Bhishmadev gives to Yudhishthira Maharaj is a big part of Mahabharata. So even after the battle of Kurukshetra, he had lots of time to give a big class on. I don't know. I don't really know how long it took. It probably took some time. Original name of Bhishmadev is Devavrata. He's the son of Maharaj Shantanu and Ganga Devi. So, how many read Mahabharata? This part. Okay, good. So, Maharaj Shantanu is a great king, and at some point he was hunting in the forest, and he sees Ganga Devi, and as the great king, as what usually great kings do when they see a beautiful woman, they want to marry her. Anyway, they were a bit cultured, not like now. So she agrees, and then she says, yes, but as soon as you do something that I don't like, goodbye. So anyway, Shantanu said, okay, usually men when they are around women, they are not very intelligent. So they say, yeah, whatever, of course, you're so beautiful, why not? So he agreed. So in the course of time, Ganga Devi became pregnant, first child, and she just takes the child and she throws him in the Ganges. And he's like, okay, I shouldn't say anything. A bit strange, you know, so I shouldn't say anything. Okay, good. So she did like that with 7 children. She just became pregnant. She had they were all sons, and then she just went and threw the children in the Ganges. So at 8th son, they had the 8th son, and Maharaj Shantanu said, okay, that's enough. You're not gonna throw in the Ganges this one. So Ganga Devi was angry, and she just took the child and went away. Okay, you know the deal. Goodbye. So she disappeared with the small child. She named him Devavrata, and he was trained by Vashishta, I think, or Vishwamitra, one of them. Okay, let's search. Vashishta. Anyway, Vashishta and Ganga Devi, they trained, and then 32 years later, Maharaj Shantanu went to hunt, and he saw the same child, and he appeared and he disappeared, and then he begged Ganga Devi for the child, and she said, okay, you can have him, good. So that's and Devavrata was named as the next king, you know, like they had this ceremony, they had this for Lord Ramachandra was supposed to be the next king. You know, they have some ceremony, okay, when this king is passing away, next king will be this one. So he was supposed to be the next king. Until one day Maharaj Shantanu went again hunting. That's king usually go a lot hunting. So he went hunting, and he was smelling some very nice aroma. Where is this aroma coming? And then he saw Satyavati. She was the daughter of a fisherman. Apparently he found inside the fish. So initially she had a very fishy flavor. Because fishermen are supposed to smell fishy. But then she got this benediction from Parashara Muni, who also saw her and he liked her. So they had a child, Vyasada. And she gave her also the benediction that she will not smell fishy anymore. So that's why Satyavati had this nice aroma. So anyway, King Shantanu went to see where does this nice aroma come from, and he saw Satyavati, and he was thinking, nice. I could use a wife. My wife disappeared some time ago. So I could probably use a wife, you know. It's good if you're a king, it's good to have a wife, usually. So he said, okay, I want to marry. He went to her father. Her father was, you can just imagine you're a fisherman. The king comes to take your daughter, to have your daughter as his wife. You say, no, there's some conditions here. She's from a highly elevated family, you cannot just take her. But anyway, for some reason, her father had asked for put some conditions. He said, yes, okay, you can marry her, but her children will be the next king. And Shantanu was like, ooh, but I already, I have this, my son, Devavrata, and he's a very nice son, and so I cannot do this to him. So he more or less went away, he went back to the palace, and then Devavrata saw, hey, my father is a bit depressed. He was a bit, he really likes Satyavati. So he asked from the ministers, hey, what's going on with my father? And then he found out what's going on with her father. And so he went to this fisherman, and usually you have the father negotiating for the son, but this time it was a bit different. So you have Devavrata going to this fisherman and negotiate Satyavati for his father. So he says, yeah, okay. So Devavrata says, yeah, no problem, I will renounce, I don't want to be the next king. No problem. No worries. Don't worry about me. I will just renounce my role. And then the fisherman said, yeah, but in the palace many things happen, in the royal order, and then maybe your sons will not be, will want to take the kingdom. And then on that spot, Devavrata said, no, I will give this vow that I will become celibate. So, of course, then he brought Satyavati back to his father, and they got married. And on that point, he got this benediction. His father gave him this benediction that he can die at will whenever he wants. So that's why he was staying around on this bed, nice bed, for some time. And they also, the demigods from the sky, like Bhishma. Bhishma means something like terrible. So they thought this is a terrible vow, and they were throwing flowers from the sky. So Bhishma was named like that because he took this vow to be a lifelong brahmachari. Of course, in Bhagavad Gita, he says that he's called the grandfather. But that just means that he's from the same generation as the grandfathers. This doesn't mean that because Bhishma was brahmachari, a lifelong brahmachari. So that's not really an easy thing, because Bhishma was a brahmachari in the palace. You can imagine in the palace there's a lot of temptations, especially if you're supposed to be the next king, or maybe not. Even after, he was a very important personality. So I'm sure there were lots of ladies who wanted to marry him. And there was lots of temptations in the palace. Like, there's lots of sense gratification in the royal palace. So it's usually not a place where you would have your brahmacharya ashram. You would not put you have some brahmachari prospects, and you put them in the palace to see what's going on there, and if they survive, then they are good brahmacharis. It's usually not the best place. Good test. Yeah, on a side note, we were in the Bhaktivedanta manor on this brahmachari retreat, and so Chandramali Maharaj said there's three types of people with regard to this topic. There's some who, no matter what you do, they will be brahmacharis, you know. Like we can say Bhishma, but I don't know if this was his natural propensity, but due to his strong vow, he said, it doesn't matter. You put him in the palace, he will still be a brahmachari. So no problem, you know. He couldn't care less. And there's also a category which, no way. It doesn't matter what you do. You put them in a forest, they will still find some monkey there or something. Just joking. So there's some people who doesn't matter what you do, they will not become brahmacharis. And there's some who are in the middle, you know. If you put them in the palace, they will probably not stay brahmachari, but if you protect them, fence things around, put them in a nice brahmachari community, they might survive. So most of us are somehow somewhere there, you know. Most of the modern day brahmacharis, they are somewhere there. If you make a nice environment, then they might survive. If the environment is not good, they will just disappear. One brahmachari in the Bhaktivedanta Mantra was saying that nowadays people don't have so much respect for this for monks in general, you know. And we're talking about normal people, and we're talking also sometimes even about devotees. You know. Of course, things went a bit in Prabhupada's times. There was one extreme. If you didn't live in the temple, then you're not a devotee. It was like you just don't exist. It's like you're in Maya. You're in the temple or you're in Maya. And in current times, we went a bit in the other direction. You know, if you live in the temple, there's something wrong with you. You have a problem. You probably couldn't find a good wife, or I don't know. You're searching, but I don't know, something. So that's the other extreme. We see people who live in the temple. They are like the rejects of the society. You know, that they live in the temple because I don't know. they cannot be successful. So that's another extreme. Sometimes devotees say, even if you're now in the temple, you'll marry soon anyway. You know, now you're a brahmachari, but you'll find a good wife. I don't know. Some sannyasi was telling that his mother, he was like 60 or something. He took sannyas already, and his mother, when they met, he was still asking, "So, when are you going to marry?" So sometimes devotees are also looking like this. Okay, he's the brahmachari now. He's living in the temple, but don't worry. He will eventually find the love of your life, his life. And that's actually true, you know, in some way, almost true. That most of the devotees, they don't stay brahmachari their whole life. In Vedic culture, most of the people get married. Shudras get married, Vaishyas get married, Kshatriyas get married, and some of the Brahmanas, they will stay forever brahmacharis and take directly sannyas. Some will, some will not. But it's actually quite rare that people stay forever brahmacharis. But we should still have a culture where we have this respect for brahmacharis, you know. I'm not saying on that level that we should have the same attitude. Whenever someone takes a vow to be a brahmachari for 3 years, there should be flowers falling from the sky. Like, wow, it's so respectable, so nice, so, you know, finally someone. We should have this kind of attitude. Because in some cases it's actually a sacrifice. Being a brahmachari is a sacrifice. You could enjoy the material world. You could do many things, but you decide not to do it. You know, like in the case of Bhishma. Bhishma could have enjoyed quite some sense gratification in the palace, but he didn't. So we should really think these cases as glorious, you know, and we should have this culture of promoting vairagya, detachment. Yes, even you become grihasta, you become a very renounced grihasta, because actually brahmacharya ashram is the foundation brick of the society. Without brahmacharya ashram, you cannot have a proper society. If you don't have a proper brahmacharya ashram, you don't have a proper society. Of course, there's exceptions, and of course, we're in Kali Yuga. But general system is that good brahmacharis become good grihastas. So if someone becomes a brahmachari and then he decides to get married, okay. Of course, most of the people decide to get married, but then they become good grihastas. They become grihasta brahmacharis. They are called. They have sex just for procreation. They follow all the rules, and they continue whatever they were doing in the brahmacharya ashram. They have good sadhana. They don't have illicit sex. They preach. They just continue. You know, whatever they were doing when they were in the ashram, they just continue. I was reading this book by His Holiness Niranjana Maharaj. He was giving some example for some couple from Chaupati, and were acting as counselors. And he was having a job, and she was not working, and they were living very simple, very simple. In the beginning, she had 3 saris, and for 3 years she would wear these saris because they couldn't afford to get new saris. And wherever they went, they had to walk because they couldn't afford to pay for anything, for the transport, you know, which is not very expensive. This is in India. So they did this, and then they were counseling 50 or 100 devotees. They were counseling, organizing programs, and so on and so on. So this is the example, you know. This doesn't mean that just brahmacharis should be renounced and grihastas should be, you know, okay, enjoy. No, this is an example of very renounced grihastas who just were doing, they had very visible sadhana, they would invite people, okay, this time we have japa, and then they would chant together. So there were very nice examples. Of course, we have many examples, maybe not so many, but there's examples like this. So this should be the understanding. This is what you have good brahmacharis, they become good grihastas. And then they do whatever the brahmacharis do, they do the same. No, that's the success of this temple in Chaupati. No, that all the grihastas, brahmacharis, doesn't matter. They do the same thing. Of course, grihastas have some jobs because they have to maintain themselves, but they do just as much service. They are just as much detached, and they have this. I don't know if it's a rule, but they have this that even grihastas who act as counselor, they don't accept donations from anyone, and that's very Brahminical, and then this allows them to preach, no? Because they don't get donations, they are not dependent, so they can do whatever they think is useful, you know. So they can just preach. So that's normal society. good brahmacharis who decide to marry, they become good grihastas. And then in the course of time, they get married, they have children, and then they become good vanaprastas. They don't stay grihastas their whole life. They decide, okay, we raised our children, okay, now we have we should dedicate more time to Krishna consciousness. I retire more or less from worldly activities. Nowadays, grandfathers raise grandchildren, and they're like playing these childish games, That's not what old people should do. Old people should spend their time in Krishna consciousness, not raise grandchildren and do these crazy things. And of course, they can even take sannyas. So brahmacharya ashram is the foundation of the society. If you want to have a good society, then you have to have good brahmacharya ashram. And then everything else will come. Of course, all the other projects are welcome, it's good, it's not, but this is the traditional Vedic understanding. And of course, because we're in Kali Yuga, we can have to do many things. But that's the traditional thing. So we should develop this understanding. Everyone, all the devotees should develop this understanding, that this is how things should work, I was talking with one young devotee, he's from Manchester, I think, in the UK. He told me his parents are some sort of devotees, and they are very favorable. They are very happy he's a devotee, but as long as he's not fanatic. That he can come to the temple sometimes and chant some Hare Krišna and good and all this, but don't abandon school and move to the temple. It's become successful, make money and influence people, and give something for Krishna. So this is a bit like the understanding of parents of Raghunath Goswami. They were also Vaishnavas. They were very happy that Raghunath Goswami he's a Vaishnava, he's attracted. They had Krishna Katha in the palace. It was like a palace where they were living. But when he wanted to surrender everything and go to Lord Chaitanya, they were like not very happy. Like, hey, what are you doing? Well, practicing pure bhakti, sarva dharma, parityaja, mamekam sharanam vraja, surrender everything and just give up all activities and just surrender to Krishna. No, that's too much. So sometimes we also have this understanding that, our children can be someone else, they can be a bit devotee, but don't be too serious, Just a bit for Krishna, a bit for something else. And that's actually not pure bhakti. So we should have this understanding on the level of pure bhakti, that actually the purpose of life, the purpose of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying just surrender everything and give everything and surrender to me. That's all. That's all you need to do. Oh no, but how about school? Okay, maybe you need to finish school, but if you want to have this school, then high school, then university, then masters, then PhD, and then they will ask you, hey, we have a program in the temple, 1 month, can you come for 1 month and live in the temple? No, I don't have time. So that's probably not the best understanding of Krishna consciousness. It's maybe priorities are a bit messed up. And of course, there is this valid concern that some people will come and move it to the temple, And then they will move out, because most of them will move out. And what's going to happen with them? So that's why, there's this verse, Narada Muni, of course, Krishna says the same also in Bhagavad Gita, what's going to happen to someone. But Narada Muni says, one who has forsaken his material occupations to engage in the devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage, yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. So you come, you live in the temple, after 5 years you become a grihasta or even worse. So what? Where's the problem? What's the problem? I mean, you did 5 years of devotional service, and Krishna is never ungrateful. So he will take care of you. And this is the only. And if you did university, master's, PhD, and you didn't become Krishna conscious, then what's the use? Useless. Useless waste of time. Of course, it can be used somehow, but does really Krishna really take care that someone has a PhD? If he hasn't, he uses it for preaching, good. But PhD in itself is not so useful. So we need to have this understanding that actually the only thing that matters at the end of life is how much we develop Krishna consciousness. And we should take every opportunity we have to do some, to develop in Krishna consciousness. And actually, Brahmacharya ashram is the easiest way to do it. You know, in Grihastha ashram, you have so many responsibilities. You have to take care of the house. You have to take care of children. You have to get a job. You have to, and in the Brahmacharya ashram, you just have to, as they say, eat, sleep, preach, repeat. You come for the morning program, everything is organized, there's a morning program, everything is organized, there's some prasadam, and then they will give you some books and they send you out. And then you come back, you read a bit, you take some more prasadam, you come for the evening program, that's it, finish. Everything very simple. 24 hours a day in Krishna consciousness. So, why not? And of course, if you're really taking advantage of this facility, that's something different. There can be spaced out brahmacharis and very dedicated grihastas who do more service. But that's the point, that the Brahmacharya ashram is a place where it's someone can make fast spiritual progress, which will be useful for his whole life. And just one note. Maybe we'll do something next time. Brahmacharya ashram usually means preaching. Traditionally, it means preaching. Because they have time. They don't need to do anything, so they have time. And in this convention, I was just talking with devotees. Like 70% of the brahmacharis are book distributors. Like 70%. I didn't know. I was just asking around. So, what's your service and so on? How are you? You know, we had a lot of time to discuss a bit. So 70% are book distributors, at least. You know, because that's the Srila Prabhupada's formula. And we saw there's 2 temples in Europe which are really booming. You know, of course, Ljubljana is doing very good compared to the competition. But there's 2 temples where things are really on fire. And you have the temple in Soho Street, which is based on book distribution, and you have this. There's a temple in Wales, in Cardiff. They came 15 young brahmachari, 15 book distributors, very enthusiastic. One evening they had this kirtan, And it was like, Shakti. Wow, these guys are really fired up. Of course, young a bit, maybe impassioned a bit. But, like a very stable brahmacharya ashram. Because it's very easy to maintain. If you have this preaching mentality, then it's very easy to maintain. If you don't preach, then there's always the tendency to find some other enjoyment. Because preaching will give you very fast some spiritual enjoyment. Krishna will reciprocate. And then you have this, and then you like all this temptation, you live in the palace, they come and they have some strange things. Like, yeah, I don't need it. Because you're happy, you're, wow, enthusiastic. But if you don't preach, then you're not so enthusiastic, and then everything affects you. Well, maybe you can enjoy it this way. So, I was saying this, but that's actual examples, where devotees, temples, where they are focused on, they have on book distribution, they have a strong brahmacharya ashram. Because it still works. And one note, the devotees in Cardiff, I don't know if, but these years, I don't know if they bought it or they renovated, but they invested £5 million. 5 million pounds. What we need for the renovation. And you know where they got this 5 million? They don't have Indian congregation. This is not Bhaktivedanta Manor. They don't have Indian congregation. Like in America, maybe in Seoul also they have Indian congregation. They have no Indian congregation. They got it, most of it from Sankirtan. It's not something that happened in the 90s or something, because in the 90s every temple was doing like this. It happened now, this year, last year, something like this. Just because they have the point is that these things still work. It's not that there was something that worked in the 90s and now, it's different times, Prabhu. It's not. It's not. We are different, but the times are the same. It can still be done. Anyway, and the point is that we should develop this understanding. All the devotees in the temple, devotees in the community, that the brahmachari ashram is still relevant. The brahmachari ashram is the foundation of a good community, and we should do our best to encourage anyone who wants to join the brahmachari ashram for 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, his whole life, to encourage them to see how can we work that we encourage people in this direction. And whoever decides to become a brahmachari, there should still be, I don't know if the demigods will not throw flowers, we should find someone who should throw flowers. And say, Bhishma, Bhishma. That's amazing. Anyway, I'll stop here. If there's some questions, comments. We might have the microphone. Okay. It was waiting.
Thank you for all points. I'm just inspired to put question that way. In India, I heard they see Shafran and Brahmachari Afran in different way than West. In sense, they glorify it, they respect it, but if Brahmachari men don't behave properly in India, they will react immediately.
Yeah,
and I have experience in the West. They just leave Brahmachari to do whatever he wants, and my point is that my opinion is that that is the reason why in the West Brahmachari ashram is not so respectful. That's my opinion. So what is to put question humbly? of course. What is your experience? How important is for brahmachari to behave properly, to be respectful?
Yeah,
Just that.
no, that's a valid point, of course, because you can there's some work to do on every side. We should establish a proper brahmachari ashram with proper standards, and if someone doesn't behave according to the proper standard, then like I know this. I was in India, and they are very respectful to brahmacharis. If I'm dressed in orange, if I go for Sankirtan and I try to stop, if I try to stop him, they will stop him. Because they have respect for brahmacharis. But and of course, the degradation comes usually. It's two things. One is that people don't behave properly. It's the same thing that happened with Gaudiya Vaishnavism before Bhaktivinoda Thakur came. It was all Sahajas. So Gaudiya Vaishnavism was like the general people had a very poor impression about Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So yeah, that's both ways. It goes into people should have respect for, but we should have a brahmachari ashram which command respect, that has very high standards, like this devotees in Chaupati, there is very high standards, and if you don't follow the standards, no problem, but you don't have to be, you're not a brahmachari. So yeah, I think we should try to have very, very high standards. Actually, this temple in Chaupati, they started, His Holiness Radhanand Maharaj, he started with one devotee with very high standards. And they didn't compromise. Okay, you're not on the standard, no problem, you can, you're a devotee, but you cannot stay in the temple. So then we will have if you have this high standard, then this will command respect also. But there's two ways, two things, There's something that in Kali Yuga we're not so prone to recognize the proper standards, and there's also, sometimes we don't have proper standards, and people will criticize, and sometimes they are right. So I don't know. But that's a completely valid point. We should have very high standards. Okay. Something else? Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.